a digital copy in accordance with AM number 250516 SC, or the guidelines on the transition to electronic filing in the Supreme Court. So, I read this into the record, Mr. President, because I'd like to emphasize a few key phrases. The Senate did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute itself into an impeachment court. I'll start with that one, and then the second one is this decision is immediately executory. So, pag sinabing the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute itself into an impeachment court, and yet the fact remains that we did constitute ourselves into an impeachment court, then what are we supposed to do? Because the Supreme Court tells us that we did not acquire jurisdiction. As most lawyers, well, all lawyers should know, when the Supreme Court tells another body, usually it's the lower court or sometimes it's a government agency, and the case was by our accepted rules elevated to the Supreme Court, they tell them you have no jurisdiction. The only thing you do is, what do they call it? There's a term, you have residual powers. And those residual powers basically simply allow you to dispose of the case as per instructions of the Supreme Court. Is that the understanding of His Honor?
Yes, Mr. President. Actually, residual powers apply also under Section 135. Yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina. Hindi ko po sinabi kanina na I am invoking that because the rules of court are there. Hindi po yun. Kasi Legislative Department po ang sinabi ko doon. Kasi wala pong applicable rules. Pwede po yun, ma'am, Mr. President.
Kasi ang akin po, I've tried all my life to be a dutiful citizen, and Alan knows I was a good daughter, a better daughter than he was a son, in terms of following our father's rules. Pag sinabing, hindi mo pwedeng gawin yan, wala kang karapatan na gawin yan, hindi ko gagawin yon. At kung ginawa ko yon, babawiin ko. Kasi nga sinabi sa akin na wala akong karapatan na gawin yon. So, yun ho ang iniintindi ko. I am one of 5, tama bang bilang ko, 5 lawyers here in the Senate, and I'm trying to do my job as a senator and as a lawyer. I am trying to listen carefully to our colleagues who have expressed their desire to constitute ourselves as an impeachment court. But I do not know how we can legally do that when the Supreme Court tells us we did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute ourselves into an impeachment court. We did not acquire it then, and we do not acquire it now. So how would we do that? How? And those of you who've worked with me know how hard I work to find a solution. I bend over backwards, I listen, I redraft everything para masaya tayong lahat, and of course within the bounds of the law. How do we do that? How?
Mr. President, I think the good senator already provided the answer by using the Senate's residual power. Kung titingnan po niyo yung definition ng residual power, hindi po talaga nakasulat yung power per se. Ngunit inherent sa opisina yon, kaya tinawag pong residual power. Nung sabihin po ng Korte Suprema, this is immediately executory, wala pong ibang departamento, walang ibang opisina ang tinitingnan niya kung tayo lamang. Kung hindi tayo gagalaw, wala pong iba na gagalaw. At mananatili pong nakahang ang isyong ito, Mr. President.
So, yun yung first point, Mr. President, that I wanted to raise, and thank you for your response, Senator from Tarlac. And then with respect to the second phrase that I wanted to dive into, immediately executory. So, sinabi to dun sa desisyon, and then I think the Senate President mentioned it also, that in their press briefing just yesterday, the Supreme Court stated that to recall, on July 25, 2025, the Supreme Court granted the petition to dismiss the 4th impeachment complaint against Vice President Duterte. In a 13-02 decision with the justices present voting unanimously, and Associate Alfred Benjamin Caguiwa inhibiting, and Associate Justice Maria Filomena Singh on leave, the Supreme Court en banc ruled that the impeachment complaint was void for violating the 1-year ban and due process requirements. This decision is immediately executory. Inulit pa nila sa press briefing nila. So sa akin lang po, parang nahihirapan ako as a lawyer and a lawyer in the Senate to say that they did not intend it to be immediately executory, because they said this knowing that there already was a motion for recon, and knowing that we are going to have this discussion today because we made this date public, that on this day we will have this discussion. So again, I'm trying hard to see how, other than disposing of the case using our residual powers following the instructions of the Supreme Court, we can further debate this issue. That is my dilemma, dear colleagues, Mr. President.
May I offer an answer, Mr. President?
Of course.
Pasensya na po kayo kung gagamit po ako ng paghahalimbawa. Nung pong kayo po ay medyo bata-bata po, Madam Senator, Meron pong lumigaw sigurado sa inyo. Yung
Huwag na
unang
ho natin
lumigaw sa inyo
pasukin yung
talagang
diskusyon na yon. Mahaba ho ito, mas mahaba po sa debate ng impeachment.
ganito po yun eh. Tinapat nyo talaga. Ayaw nyo magtagal pa yun eh. At tama naman po yung ginawa ninyo. Ipinakita nyo sa kanya, pinaramdam nyo sa kanya talagang wala siyang maasahan kaysa mapagod pa siya.
Sino ho
Pero ang
yun?
sabi niya sa inyo, ang sabi po niya sa inyo, pwede bang ako'y kahit papaano idadalaw-dalaw pa rin? Parang nag-MR. Nasa sayo yun, but that will not change my mind. Ganon din po yun eh. Ang Korte Suprema, sa ganitong, Mr. President, the very tenor of the decision, kahit na po sinabi niyang, oh sige, nasa sayo. Formality na lamang po yun, Mr. President. You are a trial lawyer too. Most of us here became trial lawyers. This is our experience. Huwag po nating pahirapan yun. Sana man lang kung ang decision po 8-7. Yun po pwede nating pagtalunan po eh. Wala po talaga eh, Mr. President.
If I may, Mr. President, and I think that was a good analogy. Thank you for that. Napaisip niyo ho ako doon. I think what's interesting with His Honor's analogy is there are people, there's the public, I don't know, millions of people would like to understand ano ba yung final na kasong yon, may evidence ba? And totoo yan, di ba? Hindi natin matatanggal yon. So in the same way, yung manliligaw na walang pag-asa, gusto din niyang malaman na ano ba yung chances, ano ba yung nangyari, bakit ba meron kang ganitong conclusion, can I convince you otherwise? I think that's what His Honor is trying to say. And I think the public really want to know. Let the record show na tawang-tawa po si Senator Bato sa likod. And we really want to know, sino ba namang may ayaw malaman kung merong isang public official na naakusahan ng katiwalian? Lahat po tayo interesado doon eh, whether mahal mo yung taong yon, whether galit ka sa taong yon, you want to know the truth. Kasi kung naniniwala ka na innocent yung taong yon, gusto mong mapatunayan niya na innocent siya. At kung galit ka sa taong yon, gusto mong mapatunayan na guilty siya, hindi ba? But, meron tayong kinikilalang Supreme Court na nagsasabing, hindi nga dumaan sa tamang proseso. So kumbaga siguro sa example nyo, baka hindi dumaan sa tatay ko, hindi nagpaalam ng maayos. Di wala naman akong choice, kundi sabihin na wala kang pag-asa. Baka naman may pag-asa, pero I have to follow the rules of my father's house na hindi dumaan sa tamang proseso. So doon ho tayo babalik, and as a lawyer, I have to say this na yun nga, we are governed by laws. And in as much as gusto ko rin malaman, bothered ho ako sa mga gantong akusasyon. The other day, our colleagues, merong privilege speech tungkol sa